Well, hello. Another yes or no question. This one is: was Richard III evil? Uh, Richard III, of course, famous monarch, a lot of legends attached to him. Didn't reign very long, 777 days. Dead at 32 after the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. But of course, interest was stoked up again in Richard III, although having been maintained by Ricardians for a long time, the various societies that support his virtue. But in any case, in August of 2012, um, his remains were dug up as a result of an archaeological investigation. What happened is that after the Battle of Bosworth Field, Richard had been interred in the Greyfriars Friary Church in Leicester, in a tomb there. And when the monasteries were dissolved by Henry VIII, all was lost. The building was razed, his tomb was lost, nobody pretty much knew where he was. And there had been many rumors he had been cast into the river, one thing and another. A bit like Becket, a lot of different rumors about what happened to him. Uh, but in any case, as a result of some scholarly investigation, uh, the site was discovered underneath the car park for the Leicester County Council. And the excavation was initiated. His bones were dug up. They were tested by DNA analysis, mitochondrial DNA. They found two far later descendants of Richard III's sister. And from that, confirmed that yes, it was Richard III. So I guess that there's no doubt about that. In addition, there were aspects of his skeleton that were consistent with the identification. They got the the dating right. They initially did some carbon dating and found that it was too early, but then they found out that he had eaten a lot of seafood, and seafood apparently causes some disruption to the carbon 14 analysis. So they confirmed that it was the right dates, and that he was a chap who had probably been killed by a blow of a sword on his skull. So it all kind of fits. So I think we're all fairly convinced that it really was Richard III that they found. Well, what to do with the body? Um, of course, the locals in Leicester, that's where he had been buried. They wanted him interred in Leicester Cathedral, and then a lot of carrying on went on. Oh, he should be in Westminster Abbey. He should be in York Minster. He should even be in a Catholic cathedral, Arundel Cathedral, because of course he was a Catholic. The whole church at that point was still a Catholic church. So this went on for a while, and it had to be adjudicated in court. And finally, the decision was made, yes, Leicester Cathedral is the right place, so there he is. There was even a dispute about what kind of grave he should have. Should it be a ledger slab in the floor? Should it be a raised tomb, and so forth? Well, the tomb people finally won. So anyway, there he is now. Okay, well, a short reign, the shortest reign, other than those that were never even crowned, like Edward V and Lady Jane Grey and so forth. But nonetheless, a momentous one, and one that has been constantly argued over. And of course, the big dispute, which I'll get to in a minute, was whether or not he was responsible for the killing of the princes in the tower. So, okay, let's get to the yes or no arguments. So let's start, as usual, with the yes people who say, yes, he was evil. Well, their number one argument really is that he took advantage of his position to kill the princes in the tower and thus eliminating any competitive threat to his eventually taking the crown. He had been appointed by his brother, who was Edward IV, King Edward IV, to look after the boys, look after the princes, including Edward V, who was destined to be the next king after the death of Edward IV. Well, some would say he made a big mistake appointing Richard to look after the boys, because after their arrival, having traveled south to London, he put them in the tower for safekeeping, and from which they never emerged. There was also a threat, of course, eventually made good by the man who eventually became Henry VII, from France. And so Richard made sure that he established his position quickly, was crowned, became the king, and as is typical with the Plantagenets, confirmed his position with acts of regrettable violence. So that makes him a pretty bad chap, really. Furthermore, there was a fairly plausible rumor to the effect that he had killed his wife. And in the final Christmas of his life, there was a big feast at the palace, at which not only was his wife, but his pretty young niece, Elizabeth of York, whom Richard fancied, apparently, and perhaps, a bit too much, probably, had a few drinks, one thing led to another, and how convenient it would have been for him to simply get rid of his wife, Aunt Neville, and take on Elizabeth. Well, in the event, of course, none of that happened. Elizabeth, his wife, died. They say of tuberculosis, but the chances are pretty good that Richard had her killed. But to avoid any further suspicion, of which there was plenty, I think he decided to have Elizabeth shipped off to the continent for other duties. Well, the notion that he was evil is certainly believed by subsequent people. There were Tudor politicians who viewed him as an evil person. Of course, it would suit their interest, wouldn't it? Because, of course, the Tudor kings were those who replaced Richard on the field of battle. And that was carried forward by William Shakespeare as well, who depicted him very badly. And but okay, so we have some arguments that he was, pretty awful, evil, a murderer, did whatever he had to do. So that's not very nice, is it? Okay, well let's look at those who say no, he was not evil. In fact, he was a good king. Well, to begin with, they would refute, of course, the whole notion that he did have the princes in the tower killed, and that it was probably his successor, Henry VII, who did. Unimportant. They just simply don't want to acknowledge. We shouldn't be acknowledging or automatically assuming that Richard III had them killed, and he didn't. That's That's the position of the no people. Further, he was pious. He endowed a number of religious institutions. He wanted to support them, gave a lot of money to several in particular, and he was dutiful. He was very much a responsible king. He was dedicated to hard work. He applied himself to the job in a very serious way. So, yeah, he was quite an admirable character. Next, he went successfully to battle against the Scots, defeated them, so thus he, even in his short reign, managed to earn his reputation on the battlefield, a very important accomplishment, particularly for a Plantagenet king. They almost all went into battle at one time or another. And he was successful. As of course we know, he later wasn't against Henry V, but in that respect, he was revered. And then finally, there's a very intelligently argued case for Richard that he did not murder the princes in the Tower, by a book by the novelist Josephine Tay called The Daughter of Time. It's viewed by many to be the most read, most revered mystery book ever written in the English language. So that's quite an accolade. And she says he didn't. It was actually Edward VII. So Henry VII. So that's pretty good. Is someone who has really examined the question closely, and she too came down on the side of Richard. Okay, well, those are the arguments, pro and con. What do I think about this? What's my take? Well, my take is that Winston Churchill was sure he did murder the princes in the Tower. So was my wife. So is David Starkey, and those are three people that I think are pretty sensible and probably have got it right. So I guess I have to cast my lot with the notion that Richard III was responsible for the murder of the princes in the Tower. And I guess that makes him evil, although once again we have to look at the context. The Plantagenet kings were a pretty violent, murderous lot of people. They would do whatever it takes to retain or to defend or to acquire the throne. The whole War of the Roses was just really a war between rival gangs wanting the throne, and in the process was responsible for more deaths as a percentage of the population of England than any other war England has ever been in. So these are the kinds of people we're dealing with. They're pretty dreadful. Yeah, thugs, basically. I'm sorry to have to say that, but that's really what we were dealing with, by and large, with the Plantagenets. And Richard III was just one of them. So was he evil? Yeah, but no more evil than the rest of his lot. So there it is. Oh, gosh, I probably have offended a few people. I'm sure I've offended the Ricardians, but sorry to say that's how I come out. Okay, well, if you like it, give me a like. Give me a dislike if you didn't like it. And subscribe, comment, please. Make any suggestions for other videos if you wish. And I'll see you with the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.